You don't have to convince a man to see your value. You don't have to overgive, over-explain, or overextend. You don't have to audition for a place in his life. If you really want to know what he truly feels for you, what you truly mean to him, what role you really play in his heart, you don't pressure him. You trigger his ego. And no, not in a toxic way, not in a manipulative way, not in a game-playing way, but in a psychological way that every emotionally intelligent woman understands. You shift the dynamic by shifting your energy, because a man's ego is wired to respond when a woman stops placing him at the center of her world. A man's ego lights up when he realizes your world is perfectly fine with or without him. And that moment, that realization, that split second where he senses your self-worth and feels the absence of your attention, is when the chase begins. He thought you'd always stay. He thought you'd always try. He thought your heart was a place he could walk in and out of without consequences. He misread you. He underestimated you. He got comfortable in a role you never agreed he could play forever. Because from the beginning, he wasn't chasing. He was coding. He enjoyed the affection, enjoyed the softness, enjoyed how easy it felt to be desired by someone like you. But the problem? He mistook your kindness for permanence. And that mistake is exactly what will wake him up. Not arguments, not emotional speeches, not begging him to see you clearly, but one thing: the moment you stop giving him the attention he relied on, the energy he took for granted, the validation he quietly absorbed. His ego has no choice but to react. Because here's the truth: women are never told. Men don't chase. When they're comfortable, they chase. When something shifts, they don't chase. When you pour endlessly, they chase. When you pull your energy back with grace and self-respect, they don't chase. When they feel guaranteed, they chase. When they feel the possibility of losing access to something rare, and you, love, are rare. But he only realizes that when you're no longer feeding his ego the way you used to. So without warning, without announcement, without drama, you shift. You stop explaining yourself. You stop initiating. You stop pouring into empty spaces. You stop being the emotional oxygen he got used to breathing. And you don't do this in anger. You do it in alignment. Because you finally understand. You don't inspire a man to chase by trying harder. You inspire him to chase by letting the loss of your energy do the talking. Men feel truth through contrast. They understand value through absence. They realize importance when the noise stops and silence becomes the mirror they can't escape. And when your silence is born from self-worth, not punishment, his ego feels it instantly, not as rejection, but as a threat to the identity he built around having access to you. He starts checking his phone more. He starts wondering why you're quiet. He starts replaying old conversations to see if he missed something. He starts trying to decipher why your energy shifted and why he didn't see it coming. Because here's what men never admit: a woman pulling away creates a psychological disruption in a man's mind, not because he's losing love, but because he's losing the version of himself that he enjoyed when he was around you, the version that felt admired, the version that felt safe, the version that felt important, the version that felt desired. And when that disappears, when your energy no longer feeds that version, his ego scrambles to get it back. Not because he owns you, not because he deserves you, but because the emotional supply he quietly depended on has been cut. And what do humans do when something stops being abundant? They want it more. They crave it more. They chase it more. They feel its absence more deeply. This is not manipulation. It's human psychology. Because men often don't respond to what you give. They respond to what you stop giving. And here's the part you don't realize. You're not punishing him. You're leveling the dynamic. You're giving him the space to choose you with effort, not convenience. You're giving him the opportunity to step forward. Instead of leaning back, you're giving him the chance to show you whether he wants you or just wants access to you. And that distinction is everything. Because a man who loves your attention will miss your presence, but a man who loves you will move toward you when he realizes the energy he once took for granted is now something he has to earn. This is when his ego wakes up. This is when his mind starts spiraling. This is when he begins to overthink. This is when he becomes hyper-aware of every detail he used to overlook. He starts noticing what you post, what you don't post, who you talk to, who you don't talk to, what you respond to, what you ignore, how you glow even without him. And his ego translates all of that as one thing. She's slipping away. A man's ego hates losing something valuable, especially something he didn't appreciate fully until now. And this is where the chase begins. Not with flowers, not with promises, not with apologies, but with effort. Because once his ego is triggered, once he feels the distance, once he senses the gap between who he thought he was to you and who he actually is, he will try to close that distance. He will contact you more. He will check on you more. He will ask questions he never asked before. He will show interest in topics he used to ignore. He will pay attention in ways he didn't when he was comfortable. Because now, he's not just interested, he's invested. He's not just attracted, he's motivated. He's not just curious, he's awakened. And it all started when you stopped feeding his ego and started feeding your worth. You want to know what happens inside a man when his ego gets triggered? Not the fake reactions, not the surface level attitude, not the I don't care mask he tries to wear like armor. No, I'm talking about what happens in that private battlefield, behind his silence, behind his distance, behind the things he says, and the things he swears don't bother him. Because here's the truth. Most won't tell you. A man doesn't chase because he's told to. He chases when his ego gets confronted with the possibility that he could actually lose you. And nothing, absolutely nothing, ignites a man's pursuit faster than realizing you are no longer his safe, guaranteed option. When his ego wakes up, everything changes. Watch closely. It starts with a shift in your energy. Not anger, not pressure, not begging, not over-explaining. Just a soft pullback, a quiet reclaiming, a subtle reminder that you are not someone who waits around to be chosen. And he feels it instantly, because men feel energy before they process words. He feels the gap. He feels the space. He feels the pull in his chest. When he senses you're not orbiting him anymore. At first, he gets confused, then irritated, then curious, then bothered, because he was used to you being readily available, emotionally, mentally, energetically. He was used to you being the one who filled the silence, who asked how he was doing, who checked in, who remembered the little things no one else ever noticed. He got used to your access. He got comfortable in your presence. And comfort makes people careless. So the moment your energy shifts, he feels something he wasn't prepared for. The feeling of losing control. You see, men don't panic when you call them out. They panic When you stop trying, they panic. When your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. Because when you pull back, not to punish, not to manipulate, not to play games, but to recenter, to reclaim, to restore yourself, a man suddenly sees something he had forgotten to look at. Your worth, the way you loved him, the way you supported him, the way you brought peace into his chaos, the way you made things softer without forcing anything. He remembers, and he remembers hard. But here's the part he'll never admit. He didn't just miss you, he missed how you made him feel about himself. Men are ego-driven creatures, not because they're shallow, but because ego is tied to identity. And when he senses that your world no longer revolves around him, his ego takes the hit before his heart does. Suddenly, he's replaying old conversations. He's noticing things he ignored before. He's becoming hyper-aware of your silence, your distance, your new boundaries. You don't even have to say anything. Your shift speaks for you, and it says, prove it, match my energy, rise to my level, or lose access. That message, that unspoken standard hits him deeper than any long message ever could, because ego hears it as a challenge, not a fight, not a threat, not drama, a challenge to step up, to be better, to stop taking the easy way out. And that's when the chase begins. At first, he'll try subtle things, a random message, a late night you up, a meme, a memory, a check-in, a double like on your story, something to feel out where he stands. But here's the important part. He's not reaching out because he's bored. He's reaching out because he's unsettled. Your energy has disrupted his ego's comfort zone, and discomfort creates pursuit. If you stay grounded, not cold, not rude, not punishing, just calm, centered, focused on yourself, his ego gets hit with a second realization. You're not waiting. You're not chasing. You're not dependent on his effort. You've become the one thing every man is wired to desire. A woman he could lose. Not because you threatened it. Not because you yelled it. Not because you begged for change. But because you showed it. Through your actions and your absence. Men don't fear being replaced. They fear being forgotten. They fear losing relevance in the life of a woman who once made them feel like the center of her universe. So the chase intensifies. He may get jealous. He may get restless. He may get bold. He may get emotional in ways he never was before. Because a triggered ego forces a man to feel things he didn't allow himself to feel when he thought he had unlimited access to you. But here's the twist. A man's ego doesn't get triggered when you try harder. It gets triggered when you stop trying completely. Because then he has to face the truth. He's not in control. And that moment of internal panic is when the shift happens. He starts thinking about you more during the day. He starts searching for signs that you still care. He starts replaying what he said, what he didn't say, what he should have done. He starts noticing your upgrades, the glow in your face, the peace in your tone, the boundaries you now hold with quiet confidence. And something awakens in him. Respect. Respect for your value. Respect for your self-worth. Respect for your ability to walk away from anything that doesn't honor you. Men chase women they respect, and nothing earns respect faster than a woman who refuses to abandon herself to keep someone else. So listen carefully. You never chase a man. You chase your peace. You chase your healing. You chase your standards. And when you do, when you finally stop pouring into someone who only takes you shift the entire dynamic. His ego wakes up, his mind replays, his heart stirs, his attraction deepens, and suddenly, he's the one who feels the fear of losing you. Not because you manipulated him, but because you finally remembered who you are. And a man who once took you for granted will always chase hardest when he realizes you're no longer standing where he left you. You want to know what shifts a man more than pressure, more than talking, more than convincing? It's when his ego gets touched in a way he didn't expect. Not attacked, not insulted, not belittled, but exposed. Because men with fragile egos don't respond to logic or patience or explanations. They respond to impact. And the moment you stop engaging in the ways he's used to, the moment you shift your energy, just slightly, quietly, intentionally, his ego feels it before his heart does. He doesn't understand it logically. He just feels something is off. Suddenly, you're not predictable. You're not accessible. You're not orbiting him. And to a man who is used to being admired, needed, validated, or chased, that small shift hits like an emotional earthquake. Because when a woman pulls back, not from anger, not from games, not from manipulation, but from self-respect, it triggers something deeper than fear of losing you. It triggers fear of losing himself. A man's ego is built on what he believes he controls. And when he senses you're no longer holding space for his inconsistencies, his indecision, his mixed signals, his breadcrumbing, his ego snaps awake. Not because he suddenly became mature, not because he understands his feelings, not because he's ready to step up, but because he feels his power shift, and that he notices instantly. He thinks, why is she calm? Why isn't she reacting? Why isn't she trying anymore? Why do I feel like something changed? He'll replay your last message. He'll scroll through old conversations. He'll remember moments he never appreciated. He'll check your socials at hours he swore he didn't care. Not because he suddenly loves you, but because something inside him needs to know, did I lose her influence on me? This is the part people misunderstand. You're not triggering his ego by being cold. You trigger it by being centered, by embodying a woman who is no longer waiting for his clarity to have her worth, by stepping into a version of yourself he can't manipulate emotionally, by becoming someone he cannot predict. That's what shakes him. Not silence, but unavailable softness. Not distance, but energetic boundaries. Not punishment, but presence without pursuit. That's when he starts asking himself questions he never asked before. Was she always this strong? Why didn't I see her clearly before? Why does she feel further away, even when she's still here? Because men don't panic when you leave. They panic when they feel they no longer have access. When your attention is no longer his comfort blanket. When your affection is no longer guaranteed. When your energy is no longer something he can drink from without giving anything in return. That shift, it destabilizes him. And here's the part he'll never admit out loud. A man can dismiss your love, but he cannot ignore what your absence reveals about him. Your emotional withdrawal shows him his effort was minimal, his presence was inconsistent, his behavior was selfish, his connection to you was built on your giving, not his. And that truth burns hotter than jealousy, because jealousy says, I want her, but ego trigger says, I'm losing the version of myself she made me feel like. And that loss is harder for him than losing you. He starts imagining you, smiling differently, laughing differently, choosing differently. living differently, without him in the center. And it shakes him in a way your words never could. That's the irony. Your love didn't push him to evolve. Your patience didn't push him to grow. Your efforts didn't push him to change. But your shift in energy, your absence where effort used to be, your calm where chaos used to be, your boundaries where begging used to be, that's what wakes him up. Because when you stop chasing, you remove the safety net around his ego. And when the ego feels unsafe, it wakes up, it scans, it notices, it analyzes, it panics. Suddenly, he remembers every compliment you ever gave him. He misses the softness you offered so freely. He replays the loyalty you didn't make him earn. He goes quiet because he's thinking, overthinking, reanalyzing. And no, you won't see it, but he feels it. He feels the guilt of not showing up. He feels the loss of your emotional presence. He feels the sting of your detachment. He feels the confusion of wanting you without understanding why. And the more you stay centered, calm, grounded, clear in your worth, the more intensely he feels the shift. This is how his ego cracks, just enough for his heart to speak louder. Because when the ego weakens, truth rushes in. Truth he avoided. Truth he never confronted. Truth he buried. Because he assumed you'd always be there. Truth that says, she was different. She was good for me. She cared. She tried. She showed up. She deserved better energy than what I gave her. And that truth doesn't feel good to him. It humbles him. It exposes him. It forces him to confront himself in ways your love never did. Because love nurtures, but loss transforms. And the moment he senses he misjudged you, misread you, misplayed his cards, that's when his ego fractures. That's when he feels something he can't control. That's when he wakes up to the idea that he is no longer the man you would wait for. And that realization does something powerful. It makes him rethink everything. Your conversations, your silence, your boundaries, your last interaction, your last smile, your last goodbye. Suddenly, he sees you differently, not as the woman who wanted him, but as the woman who could have him, but chooses herself instead. And that image terrifies him more than losing you, because it forces him to ask himself, why did she stop trying? What changed? What did I do? What if she finds someone who treats her better than I did? What if she already has? This is the moment he starts chasing, not because you pressured him, not because you played games, not because you manipulated him, but because your evolution triggered something in him he cannot unfeel. Because the strongest ego trigger isn't silence, it's self-worth. It's you rising, expanding, glowing differently, choosing differently, loving differently, carrying yourself in a way that says, I don't fight for space in someone's life anymore. And deep down he knows no one else will ever see him with the same softness. No one else will ever hold space the way you did. No one else will ever love him with the same depth, but someone else will treat you better. And that thought shakes him more than rejection ever could. Because for the first time, he's not afraid of losing you. He's afraid. You already realized you never needed him. And that love is the moment everything changed. You don't trigger his ego by begging for attention. You don't trigger it by trying to make him jealous. You don't trigger it by proving your worth or by running after him, hoping he finally sees it. No, his ego wakes up when your energy changes, when the version of you he got used to suddenly disappears. Not your presence, your availability. Because men like him get comfortable quicker then they get committed. And comfort can make him blind. Blind to your effort. Blind to your consistency. Blind to how lucky he was to have someone like you. But ego? Ego wakes him up. Ego snaps him out of his delusion. And nothing triggers his ego more than you shifting away from the role he took for granted. Because when you stop trying, his mind finally becomes quiet enough to hear the one question he avoided the most. Why doesn't she need me anymore? That question isn't just inconvenient for him. It's destabilizing. It rattles the part of him that believed you were his safety net. See, he didn't assume you would leave, but he assumed you would stay wanting him. And you always did. Until you didn't. Your silence, your calm, your emotional distance isn't rejection. It's a mirror that shows him. He misread you, misjudged you, miscalculated you. And men hate miscalculations. Your pullback rewires the dynamic. Suddenly, he's not the one evaluating. He's the one being evaluated. He's not the one choosing. He's the one hoping to still be chosen. He's not the one deciding whether you're worth effort. He's the one wondering if he still has access to you. Do you know what that shift does to a man who took you lightly? It hits the exact place where ego lives. Control, power, relevance, significance. Because the fear is never losing you. It's being replaced by someone who gets what he used to get without earning it. It's realizing you can live without him, laugh without him, glow without him, rise without him. Ego doesn't fear your absence. It fears your indifference. And that's exactly what begins to show when you stop trying. You're not angry. You're not dramatic. You're not emotional. You're not punishing him. You're simply unavailable to the version of him that didn't show up for you. And that quiet shift hits harder than any speech you could give. Because ego doesn't react to words. Ego reacts to loss of power. And by choosing yourself, you take back the power you didn't realize you gave away. You see, when you're always available, he feels safe. Too safe. Safe enough to assume your presence is permanent. Safe enough to believe your love is unconditional, even when his effort isn't. Safe enough to forget that beautiful women with soft hearts and steady energy are not easy to find. But the moment you shift into your own lane, your own life, your own priorities, he feels something he thought he would never feel. The possibility of losing you. That's where the chase begins. Not in guilt, not in regret, not in clarity, but in ego. Ego fires first. Long before the heart catches up, his mind starts replaying your voice, your kindness, your softness, your patience, your presence, your absence. Magnifies all of it. He starts to wonder who has your attention now, who you're laughing with, who you're texting, who you're smiling at. Not because he cares deeply yet, but because the idea of someone else valuing you forces his ego to wake up. Ego hates competition, hates losing, hates being replaced, especially by someone who sees your worth more clearly than he ever did. He won't show it immediately. He'll pretend not to notice. He'll act unbothered at first. But watch closely. His behavior shifts. Before his words do, he starts liking old posts, watching your stories faster, texting at weird hours, bringing up old memories. He suddenly wants to just check in, or see how you've been, or make sure you're okay. Not because he's worried, but because he's threatened. Your distance became proof that you were never the one who needed him. He was the one, depending on your energy. Now he feels the withdrawal, the gap, the change, the silence. He feels the loss. before he understands it. And the moment he realizes, you've shifted into a version of yourself that doesn't revolve around him. His ego can't stay quiet. It can't let you slip away so easily. That's when the pursuit begins. Slow at first, then persistent, then obvious. Because the truth is this: men don't chase women who chase them. Men chase women who don't need to. Your power was never an effort. Your power was in what you were willing to stop giving. The chase begins when you stop explaining yourself, stop repeating yourself, stop proving your loyalty, stop showing up first, stop accommodating his uncertainty. Your shift forces him to question everything. Did she lose feelings? Did she meet someone? Why doesn't she react to me anymore? What changed in her? Why can't I feel her energy? Why doesn't she need me? That mental chaos is the trigger. That uncertainty is the ignition. That loss of access is the fuel. Men don't chase clarity. They chase confusion. Men don't chase comfort. They chase contrast. Men don't chase validation. They chase absence. You didn't hurt him. You disrupted the dynamic. You broke the pattern he relied on. You stopped feeding an ego that only grew because you kept shrinking yourself. Now, you're expanding again, and he feels it. He feels the shift in your tone. He feels the shift in your timing. He feels the shift in your energy. He feels the shift in your attention. And ego hates not being the center of your emotional universe. So he comes back, not because he's ready for you, but because he's not ready to lose you. But here's where your true power lies. You don't chase back. You don't over-explain. You don't reopen every door. You don't reward bare minimum effort. You don't shrink again just because he suddenly wakes up. Because the goal is not to trigger his ego, just to get him back. The goal is to awaken his awareness. So if he returns differently, not with entitlement, but with intention, not with control, but with clarity, not with ego, but with effort. He may chase now, but you decide if he gets to catch you, because what you learned is stronger than anything he feels. You don't win by making him want you. You win by wanting yourself more than you ever wanted his love. And that love is the moment he realizes you're not the woman he can toy with anymore. You're the woman he has to rise to meet. You want to know what finally breaks a man's ego? It's not anger. It's not confrontation. It's not fighting for his attention. It's not demanding effort from someone who gives you the bare minimum. No, what finally gets to him is the moment you stop behaving like he's the only one with power. Because when you pull back your energy, when you stop rewarding inconsistency, when you no longer respond instantly, when you stop making him feel like he's the prize, his ego starts to crack. Not because you're playing a game, but because you remove the comfort he took for granted. Men don't panic when you walk away angry. They panic when you walk away quietly, when you walk away with peace instead of drama, when you walk away with boundaries instead of begging, when you walk away without announcing it, without explaining it, without trying to convince him to treat you right. When a man with an inflated ego loses access to the woman who made him feel admired, validated, wanted, desired, that's when the chase begins. Because here's the truth: most women don't realize his ego wasn't boosted just because you liked him. His ego was boosted because you liked him deeply. You showed him care. He didn't show back. You gave him warmth. He didn't reciprocate. You offered emotional presence. He didn't know how to return. You made him feel valued, even when he wasn't giving you enough. You made him feel chosen, even when he wasn't choosing you fully. You created a world where he could undergive and still feel overloved. And when that world disappears, his ego feels it, like withdrawal. That's when he starts spiraling. Not because he loves immediately, but because the emotional supply he assumed would always be there is suddenly gone. And now? Now he has to confront the truth he avoided. You were the source of the emotional comfort he didn't even realize he depended on. Here's what happens next. He starts checking your social media, even if he never used to. He starts rereading messages because he misses how your words made him feel. He starts replaying moments because the silence hits him harder than he expected. He starts noticing other men noticing you, and that shakes him because men with ego issues don't fear losing you. They fear someone else realizing how incredible you are. Before they did, he'll start sending subtle messages. He'll test the waters. He'll try to pull you back in. Hey, how have you been? Saw something and it reminded me of you. I miss us. Thought about you yesterday. They don't come from romance. They come from impact. Because when your presence fed his ego, your absence starves it. And that starvation is what makes him chase. But here's the deeper truth. He's not just chasing because of ego injury. He's chasing because the moment your energy pulls away, his illusions fall apart. He realizes you're not waiting for him. You're not obsessing over him. You're not dependent on him. You're not begging for his time. You're not trying to prove your worth. And nothing threatens a man's ego more than realizing the woman he took for granted doesn't need him anymore. Now he has to step up. Now he has to try. Now he has to put effort. He never thought he'd need to. Because before, you were the easy option, the safe one, the guaranteed yes, the person always available. Now, now you're the one. He can't predict, can't read, can't control, can't assume. Your unpredictability shakes him to his core. Your silence forces him to confront his feelings. Your boundaries require him to grow up. Your distance exposes the gap between what he says and what he actually does. And this is where the chase becomes real, not because you manipulated him, but because you grew beyond needing him. Men chase women. They feel they could lose, not emotionally manipulate, actually lose. But here's the part most women miss. It's not the pulling away that triggers a man's ego. It's the woman you become when you pull away, the woman who chooses herself, the woman who respects her energy, the woman who no longer tolerates crumbs, the woman who knows her worth in silence, the woman who doesn't settle, the woman who doesn't fold, the woman who doesn't shrink herself. For a man still unsure of what he wants, he starts chasing because suddenly you're no longer in the role he put you in. You're not the caretaker. You're not the pursuer. You're not the emotional stabilizer. You're not the backup plan. You've become the woman he has to earn. And men value what they have to earn. They commit to what requires effort. They step up for the woman who shows she won't stay for half love. You trigger his ego, not with games, not with manipulation, not with punishment. You trigger it simply by rising above the version of yourself that tolerated too little for too long. You trigger it by upgrading your standards. You trigger it by no longer trying to convince him. You trigger it by becoming the woman who doesn't chase. She gets chosen. And this is where it all flips. The moment he realizes you can live without him is the moment he becomes afraid of losing you. The moment he feels your absence more than he ever appreciated your presence. The moment he understands that you were not desperate, you were devoted. And now that devotion is no longer his. That's what makes him chase. That's what makes him change. That's what makes him step into the man he should have been from the beginning. And if he can't rise to that level, then he loses you for good, because you're no longer the woman who settles for half effort. You're the woman who chooses herself every time someone refuses to choose her fully. And that, more than anything, is what makes him see you as the one that got away. Because you didn't just trigger his ego, you triggered his evolution. And only real men can rise to meet a woman who has risen above her past.